Hey, I'm Delise.
And I'm Ginny.
We know that parenting comes in seasons, and even the smallest wins deserve a happy dance.
Join us as we chat with moms in every stage of the parenting journey, fixing our eyes on Jesus each step of the way.
This is Blessings and Motherhood, because we believe that you can hold tissues and confetti at the same time.
Hey everyone, this is Delise from the future popping on to let you know that we had a little bit of a mom life day and my son Leo was very sick, and so he was a part of our recording. I apologize in advance if it is distracting to you, but as you know, motherhood comes with all kinds of fun surprises and we wanted to try to bring you this episode anyway. We hope you enjoy it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Blessings in Motherhood. Today we're having another controversial conversation using the 15 tools of learning. Should you celebrate Santa Claus with your kids? Yes or no? Jenny, I'm going to let you start it off. What do you think?
Yeah, so in my house, we do Santa Claus. We talk about him. They know who he is. They believe in him still at this point. And that's really about it, I guess. We do Santa in my house. Do you, Delise?
So my son is 2 years old, and as you guys know, we are still kind of establishing things, but I was not raised, I don't want to use the word celebrating, believing in Santa Claus, I guess is what I'll say. I wasn't raised to believe in Santa Claus, and so I didn't necessarily find it necessary when we were thinking about if we were going to do it with Leo. So no, we don't do Santa Claus.
Yeah. So we're going to be using the 15 tools to kind of just talk about it, talk about why we do things, talk about how we do things. So Delise, do you want to share what tool you're going to use first?
So I'm going to start off with the tool of comparison. I know that this is far-fetched, but in my mind, this comparison I'm going to make for you would be literally the same thing. To me, telling your children that Santa Claus, like St. Nicholas, the actual historical figure, is still alive and well and is visiting children across the planet is the same as saying, Dr. Martin Luther King, a true historical character, is alive and well. And every February he comes and gives good messages to little boys and girls in the middle of the night. To me, it is the same. And I'll get into why I find it problematic in a little bit. But for now, what I'll say is the world is amazing. Like, this world that God has created is actually mystical and amazingly wonderful and completely difficult to wrap your mind around. And the supernatural does exist. And so, even though what I just said about Dr. Martin Luther King is ridiculous and sounds far-fetched, because the world actually is that fantastical and there are things that you don't understand and there are things that you don't see that really happen, it is not only plausible, and I hate to even say that something like that could happen, because I do believe that angels are still present, and I do believe that Jesus came back from the dead. So it's plausible. And for a child who doesn't fully understand, and I don't even fully understand as an adult, the breadth of some of those things, I think it's too believable. And we'll talk a little bit more about it later. But yeah, because of that comparison between the supernatural that does exist and the supernatural of trying to support Santa Claus still being alive and actually coming, and all of the stories that come along with it, I just find it too close to what could be supernatural and what could be believable. And because it's not true, I do not want to partake.
Nice. I've never really thought about the supernatural part of it. So that's really cool that you brought that up. It's a different point of view that I've never heard it talked about that way. So I really appreciate that, Delise.
Yeah, that is my biggest thing. And I'll go deeper into it for just a second. So this is one of my other points, like relationship, but I really believe that the enemy wants you to think that things like that are not real. And I have a quote for you from one of our favorite books, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. In this book, at the end of the book, it's page 88 if you buy, or 188 if you buy it from CC. C.S. Lewis is talking about the two different types of pretending. And I'm just going to read it to you. I know that this can sound harsh. And again, I'm not coming for anybody who wants to do Santa Claus, but this is C.S. Lewis's perspective. He says, there are two kinds of pretending. There is the bad kind, as in a man is pretending to go and help someone and said he's not really helping you. But there is also the good kind of pretending that leads to the real thing. I'm going to skip down a little bit in the paragraph. He says, very often the only way to get the quality in reality is to start behaving as if you are a certain thing already. And then, like a children's game, um, you learn to become that thing. Like, so for example, if you're trying to learn to be kind, you tell your children to say kind things, but they're not really kind. But as they pretend to be kind, they learn what kindness is. And that is, as he said, that is why children's games are so important. So there is an importance to pretending, and I want to protect it. So Jenny, what's your first tool?
Yeah, no, I love that. So yes, I chose invention for my first tool. When I was looking at the classical tools little sheet that CC gives you, it had some questions beside it. And basically, invention is about where can I find more information about this topic? And I took this and hopefully went about it in the way it's supposed to be using the classical tools. But when my kids ask me, is Santa real? I always respond with another question because I know there is that thing out there about, I don't want to lie to my kids. And that is true. And I absolutely agree with that. And in this instance, I'm responding with another question, kind of using that classical educator type model by, what do you think? Tell me what you think. And in that, I'm trying to really let them know how they can find more information about this topic. So if I ask them what they think, they might tell me, well, yeah, I think he is real because he's so giving and that's like Jesus. And they may come up with something like that. Or they may say, well, I'm just not sure, mommy. I mean, how can Santa's reindeer fly? I don't know. And I said, that's a great question. Let's look that up. What do you think? What do you know about this? Where could we go find more information about this topic? Do you want to? And sometimes they do. And sometimes they're like, no, I just think that they can fly or, something silly like that. But I want them to learn how to do the research. And in this, I'm trying to help them learn critical thinking skills. So it's not that from how I see it, I'm not trying to lie to them. I just really want them to discern the truth and to find the truth for themselves. How can I help them foster that desire to want to search for the truth? And how can I let them know I'm going to help you find the truth in that? And eventually I will help them find the truth. I kind of have this way that we're going to go about it. With Santa Claus, I have never said that he is real. What I've told them is that there's a secret to Santa, and I guess in the long run, the secret is going to be that Santa is not a person, but the Santa is an idea, and he is the idea of giving. He is the idea of not wanting glory for yourself kind of thing. Santa gives us presents, and yes, that's really mommy giving you the presents, but I didn't need you to thank me for those. I gave you those presents because I love you. I did not give you those presents because you were good for all year long. I did not have a list and was checking it twice. But the idea of Santa is that he gives to children all around the world. He is a giving man. He is a kind man. He is a joyful man. And that's kind of where I'm going to go with it with my kids when the time comes. At this point, I have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and they have not wanted to know the secret yet. They ask me all the time, Mommy, is Santa real? I always come back with, what do you think? Let's look this up. Is this realistic? Is it not? And I let them wrestle with that for a little bit. After they wrestle with it, we might do some research, we may not. I come back with that question, well, are you ready to know the secret about Santa? And they have not said yes yet. And in my mind, I do think they know the reality of Santa, right? That he's not real, that mommy gives him the presents, but I give them that option. Are you ready to know the secret? And I kind of let them know, like, once you know the secret, you know it. You can't not unknow it. And they haven't wanted me to tell them that yet, despite me knowing my 7-year-old and my 9-year-old probably do get it. It's almost like they want to keep their childlike innocence and believing in Santa Claus as well. So that's kind of where I saw the invention of it, and Santa, and teaching them how to think critically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very interesting approach, like helping them to seek the truth without letting them quite find the truth, but if they find it, It's interesting. I do understand what you're saying, and I think that the fact that you are telling them that there's a secret and asking them if they want to know. I wonder. I will be very interested to hear from Biggs in about 2 years whether or not he knew what you meant by that, because he is close to that age for sure. And some children understand that type of speech very young. So it's very interesting. And I'm not sure. I definitely have the tension
Yeah.
of feeling like if I tell my children that Santa is alive, that I'm lying to them. I have trouble getting around that. I have a story about it for you in just a second. But yeah, I have a lot of trouble getting around that.
Yeah, I haven't told my kids that Santa Claus is alive. I really haven't said much of anything. They know there's a secret, and I know some people are gonna probably have issues with that. Oh, you tell your kids secrets, or you tell them that secrets are okay. And I think I'm getting into another one of my topics real quick, but I'm going to go ahead and go there. I think there's different kinds of secrets, and then the way we define the word secret too is different, because you can have secrets that are bad. You should not keep secrets. I do not want my children to keep certain secrets from mommy, right? But if there's a secret as far as like you're throwing a surprise birthday party for daddy, and I don't want my kids to tell them about that surprise party, that's technically a secret, but it's meant for good, and for them to understand that, I think is where I'm at with that whole secret thing right now, because it's not that I'm trying to hurt them with this secret. They know that, and they know that I am absolutely 100%. When you want to know, I am going to tell you. So it's not like a hurtful secret. And I know people can go both ways on that, keeping secrets from their children or their children keeping secrets from you. They're not going to trust you in the long run. And I think, and what I hope that I'm fostering in my children by teaching them critical thinking skills, not just with this, but in our homeschool in general, is that, mommy. I hope that I am fostering in them and mimicking a Christ-like persona to them, and they know my characteristics, and they know mommy's not going to lie to them. They know who I am inside and out. They see me every day in the way I am. They see me fail, and they see me succeed, and they see my responses in those fails. Now, am I perfect in that? Absolutely not. But they have seen me say, "Hey, mommy was so wrong, and I'm so sorry." They've heard me say, "Hey, let's not." This happened just the other day. I think Colby got hurt on her ear, and Lila was like, "Colby, your ear's pierced now. You have a hole in your ear." And I had to sit her down and say, "Lila, no, that's a lie. That's not helpful to Colby. Do you think she enjoyed you telling her that there's a hole in her ear? She got scared. You hurt her feelings. We can't not that's hurtful to her." And in this case, I went also into, "Now I know who you are. I know you're a kind sister. I know you love your sister, and I know you didn't mean that in that way." So I'm hoping kind of in the long run to teach those critical thinking skills to my children, and for them to know my persona, and that, when they do find out the truth, when they find out that there's not really this fat jolly man that travels around the world in a sleigh and flying reindeer, that they're going to say, "You know what? My mommy loves me. She was not lying to me. She was letting me have an imagination. She was letting me figure this out for myself. We were having fun. We were having a good time at Christmas, and it was just another way to make the holiday season memorable."
I hope they think that. Okay, so my second tool is actually testimony. I hope that what you just said is the way that your children respond. Let me tell you one of the lowest moments of my entire childhood. Okay, so I was a very imaginative child. I don't think that's surprising to anyone who knows me. And I love to play with dolls specifically. I had this whole world with playing with dolls. I think some of it was that I was an only girl. And so, like, my brothers didn't want to play with me. So they would just say, go play with your dolls. And so I just did. But when I was probably 6 or 7, a little girl and she had a little brother moved in right down the street from me, and they were Christians. Their dad was the pastor of the Presbyterian church on the corner, and the gap between her and her little brother was the same as me and my little brother, so we became like best friends, and she was obsessed with dolls. So we would play and we would pretend all the time, to the point where we'd be on the phone. If we weren't allowed to go over, my mom would let me call this girl, and we would play on the phone in our closets and pretend like we were in the same place for like hours. Like, it was a
Aw.
very immersive and close friendship. So one year, my friend let me know, and I knew this, but I don't think I heard her the way that I heard her this particular year, that it's not Colby. Uno momento. So my friend proceeds to tell me and my little brother that they believe in Santa, that he is definitely real. And then they tell us all of the reasons why they know that he's real. Because of course that was the first question that my brother and I asked. We were like, well, what makes you think he really exists? And they said, all the classic things. We lay out carrots outside and there's water and the carrots get eaten. We see the bite marks on the carrots and the water gets drunk. And then we lay out the cookies and that gets eaten and the milk, and all their parents had an extremely, and this is no critique on her parents, they had an extremely elaborate way of helping them to experience Santa Claus on Christmas Eve.
Mhm.
And so my little brother and I, and this is one of the lowest points of my childhood. I feel deep shame and regret when I think about this. But you have more. But my little brother and I proceeded to tell her, no, your parents eat those cookies and they drink that milk and they pour the water out on the grass. I promise you. And they break the carrots and throw them away. None of those things are real. Da, 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 da. We were trying to help them because we have very strong truth centers. And so they were shocked, but they said that can't be true. And we said, watch. And so that's what my friend and her little brother did. They watched, and they watched their parents as they ate the cookies and drank the milk. They watched out their window right where they put the carrots and the water as their parents threw them away and poured them out. And it was devastating. So then one day, my mom gets a phone call and she calls me upstairs,
No.
and it was the pastor. And they were very perturbed that I had gone to such lengths to reveal the truth to their children. Now, let me just say, if I haven't already been clear, I do believe that what I did was wrong. It was not kind. And there was, the little spirit inside of me saying, like, you're not being nice about this. I knew I wasn't being kind. But I just thought that the truth mattered more at the time. And anyway, it crushed my friend. The point is, it crushed her. And because she had that personality that I had, where she was willing to believe in the fantastic and she was open to pretending and knew the difference, this was the bad kind of pretending. This was the kind of pretending where you thought that you were helping someone, but really you weren't. And it really damaged like the way that she saw her father, who, as I said, was a pastor. And I'm sure, I don't know her now, but I am hopeful that she was able to recover from that. But I know that the story I just told you is not uncommon. Like, that is actually
Mhm.
a way that a lot of people actually decide that they're not going to teach their children about Santa Claus, because of how deeply it wounded them, because the fact that the fantastic is, it's real. There are so many things that you simply can't explain. There are so many things that don't make sense that do happen. And I believe, I'm not saying believing in Santa is from the enemy, but I do believe that the enemy doesn't want you to believe that those things are possible. He wants you to think that God intervening in your life in a way that could only be God is too far fetched. And
Mhm.
he wants you to believe that he doesn't exist. He is very difficult to explain. The whole spiritual realm is almost beyond the mind's comprehension. And so I
Mm.
just, watching that happen to my friend was crushing, and I didn't want to do it.
You didn't wanna do which part?
I didn't want to tell my child that, oh, I'm sorry, a lie.
Ah. Yeah, no. Hey, it is what it is, yeah. No, um, I'm just like, thinking through this, yeah, that's good. I know, my kids, my brother has chosen not to do Santa as well, and his kids are a season above my kids. And so they have said to my kids before that Santa is not real. And I will say it's almost encouraged me in a way, because my kids come to me for the truth. Mommy, Joy Kate said that Santa is not real. I think he is real. And I said, well, what do you think? And again, I never say, well, yes, Santa's real. They will ask me, do I believe in Santa Claus? And because I see Santa as an idea, not a person, I say, yeah, I believe in Santa. And again, coming back to that, when you think of Santa Claus as the idea of giving selflessly, it just kind of goes back to that. So my third tool is memory, and again, I went back to the tool list and the questions beside memory. Where when did you learn this? Does this remind you of anything else? And how could you make this topic memorable? And I think that's kind of what Santa is on the backside of Christmas. I do think there's something special about Christmas trees and Santa and Christmas lights and gifts and family and food and all of those things do make up Christmas for me. We can bring testimony in as well, kind of like what I was talking about earlier. I grew up with Santa. I I did not see my parents as liars. I knew who my parents were. I knew they were good people who would never lie to me. And I did not, and this was just my personal experience. I did not see it as, well, if you lied to me about Santa, you're lying to me about Jesus, and Jesus isn't real. But I do know that some people do have that outcome because of Santa. So I'm not saying that's not real. It just was not my experience. That's not my testimony with it. And kind of like what you were talking about, Delise, I've never really spent much time thinking about like the spiritual world and in that. But these things, and even Santa, in my opinion, they just help provide like a special ambiotic feel about Christmas, because my kids do know the ultimate reason for this season is Jesus, and it is him coming down to this earth, being born, God sending us his child as a human, 100%. We were talking about this morning. He is 100% God and he is 100% human. And God loved us so much that he sent his son, right? And that is the main thing we talk about at Christmas. Santa Claus is kind of just like something else that makes the season more special for us. The Bible, now I don't think, and in my research in the Bible, doesn't really specifically tell us how to celebrate, but it talks about celebrating in so many different ways. I mean, the angels rejoiced at Christ's birth. The shepherds rejoiced in their way. The wise men gave gifts. Um, celebrations is everywhere. It talks about rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. It doesn't say specifically how you need to do that. You have to rejoice by doing this and this and this. You can't do Santa. You can't do anything else. The Bible doesn't even tell us really, I think, like when to celebrate Christ's birth. I know there's been a lot of history in that and people trying to figure out like when on the calendar that was, but to my knowledge, it hasn't really been like, oh yes, he was definitely born December 25th. So I know that we've just kind of put that as a day, December 25th, Jesus' birth. So I think there are so many different ways that you can celebrate Christmas. And in that, I think it's just our job to celebrate well and to give God the glory in the end. And for us, Santa just makes it Christmas a little bit more memorable, a little bit more magical, I guess, if you want to say that word. I love to have a good time. I love to celebrate. I love joy. We do a lot of things like that in our house. But I guess in the end, I don't see that Santa needs to take away from Jesus being born in that. I think they can both exist together in celebrating, in making something memorable for my kids. And I will say, I really am excited for the day that I do get to tell them the secret to Santa, because it's gonna be a great conversation and I'm excited to have it. I feel like I'm ready because I know my kids are 7, 9. I know we're there. Pretty sure that they already understand it, but I'm really excited to have that conversation with them. But we participated in Operation Christmas Child this year. I know lots of people do all around the world. And when we put our box at our church on the pile, Lila says to me, she said, Mom, it's kind of like we're giving them a gift, but they're not going to see us. They don't know who we are. And they're going to be so grateful and thank somebody. Maybe they're going to thank the guy that gave it to them, whoever that is, but that's not